Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Eric.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Day number 12 of the 12 Days of Podcast. Jeff.
Can you believe it?
We made it.
Can you believe it?
We're here. We're alive. We put out great content for 12 days straight. And guys, the truth is you don't know half of what actually went into making this what it is. But the way it seems, the perception that is out there, and the way that it lives on is excellence and perfection. And Jeff, let's call it that.
Yeah, let's just say it was the easiest 12 days I've ever experienced.
I don't even care that it's easy. I just like that people are getting the final product and digging it, and that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Jeff, for the last time this holiday season, I'm going to go over the lineup. It started off with Cameron. It continued in LA with Cord Jefferson. Then we stopped by Tinashe's house for an interview with her. We had an episode back here at our place with our friend Bun B. We sat down with James Rico from Real Goats. Gia Peppers came over. We were back in LA for an episode with Jorge Peneche. We were down in Atlanta for Young Baby Tate. And then we finished up in New York with Illmind, Jim Jones, Brandon Jinx Jenkins, and today,
it's our brother Dan, our actual brother.
Not the colloquial term.
No, people are always confused. Wait, who's twins? Who's brothers? How come you don't work with that brother? How come you work with this one? Are you guys twins? All this stuff. So yes, Dan is my twin brother. He's Eric's regular brother.
Yep.
And Dan has a real life outside of this.
Uh-huh.
And we get into all that.
We do. It was a pleasure to sit down with Dan. Dan, who has seen a lot of podcasts, lived through a lot of podcasts.
Dan has like real jobs.
Now he actually has a real podcast.
Yeah.
We were delighted to sit down with our brother. It's funny because like our relationship isn't us interviewing him.
I think the funny thing is we have lived our lives parallel to one another.
Yes.
But there's a lot of stuff that we actually don't know.
Well, there were some funny things that we found out in this episode, and I guess you guys are finding out everything in this episode. So look forward to that. Look forward to, what do we have? One more episode in 2019.
Yep.
And then
that comes out on the 31st.
Yeah, so then we got, I guess, a whole slew of things happening after January 1st. Look forward to that. And in the meantime, if you're new to us, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, why not?
It feels like,
for all the Dan fans out there who are really like on the fence.
Yeah.
Should I pay attention to what else these guys have?
Yeah.
If Dan hasn't brought you this far, let's push you over the edge. Come on over. Hit that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash the subscribe button. Subscribe below.
Jeff, when do you want to get into it?
Right now.
Yo, what up, Eric, a.k.a. Brooks Brothers, a.k.a. Family Ties.
Yo, what up, it's Jeff, a.k.a. The Fly God, a.k.a. Jeff Goldblum.
Yo, what's up, it's Dan, a.k.a. Eric and Jeff's brother, a.k.a. the third favorite brother on the third favorite podcast.
Yeah, it's your third favorite podcast to waste time with ItsTheReal.
Bow.
Damn, what's happening?
What's going on?
Dan. This is what the people wanted.
The streets have been asking.
Dan, here you are. Do you understand the fascination that listeners have with you
and your life?
No, not at all. And by the way, I've sat and watched a lot of these podcasts happen.
Yeah.
And now that I'm sitting in the seat, that happened really quickly. We got into that pretty quick.
We take off and just,
Yeah, it reminds me of when I went to The Price is Right. And when they do the warm-up into the show, it happens so quick when they call everybody out.
You did not get called up with The Price is Right.
I did not.
Much like The Price is Right, when you leave here, you're going to have a picture taken in front of the green screen.
Do you also serve Bob Barker burgers and Plinko pizza?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Not anymore.
But that's a great suggestion.
Okay.
I'm glad you made it. Dan, a lot of people do have a fascination of your life, of your career. A lot of people have run into you on the streets.
Yeah.
With and without us. You've gotten people sending
asking for jobs.
Yeah, resumes that say, hey, I'm a fan of your brothers. What is the weirdest circumstance that you've run into?
I mean, they're all fun. I think the weirdest one, this is many years ago. One time, Jeff and I went to a party when I was back from Cleveland for a weekend. And we ran into Miss Info. Eric wasn't there. And I'd never met her before. And she said, "What happened to your hair?" And I said, "Nothing. I don't know." Because she thought I was Eric, obviously.
I don't know if that says more about you or Minya.
Yeah,
I think it says more about Minya. Very racist.
I don't know, but that was a little strange when that happened. But I don't know. It's all fun. I think it's great when people recognize me for being a part of what you guys do. And it's also like I'm a part of the crew, but also, it's your guys' podcast and your guys' brand that you've built, not mine.
I think what's made this ask of having you on the podcast special is that we like to congratulate a person and show them what their life looks like, I think, from our perspective, which is really nice. And you've lived a life that is very deserving of that. And you've taken a lot of risks. You've lived in a bunch of different places. You've gone away when, I think a lot of people look at Jeff and myself and are like, wow, those guys got a lot of guts. They do things independently. And you know what? Maybe it's true, but there's certain things that we haven't done. One of them was move far away when you were looking at colleges. Mm-hmm. And listen, both you guys are twins. You've known each other your whole lives.
Yes, although Dan is older by a minute.
The furthest you guys had been away from each other really for the first 17, 18 years of your lives was like across the hall.
Yeah,
and
actually.
To go to Indiana University when, I would go upstate to Syracuse or Jeff went over to Boston and train right away. Like, were you afraid? Were you nervous?
Not at all. And I think once I got there, it was sort of like it hit me like, hey, you're now off to sea and there's no life vest.
Yeah.
But I just sort of said I'll figure it out, and I did, and I made great relationships and great friends, and I'm lucky that it was for the great years I had, and built up experiences and relationships that helped me and stay with me through today. But I was never like nervous going there or concerned. But there were certainly early days where it was like, I'm over my skis a little bit and I have to, get back to figuring out how to make new friends and adjust to being in a different part of the country.
Well, especially because everybody at Indiana University seemed to be from Indiana.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just not assuming things about people. So I assumed everyone knew each other because Indiana's a relatively small state and people knew each other from, my high school played your high school in basketball. And I assumed everyone knew each other, but they didn't. And just like when you go to another country or go to another part of this country, you can't make assumptions about people. And I think that helped me get over whatever concern I did have on the front end.
Did you always want to work in sports?
Yeah. Just like you. I mean, I think you said it best.
Well, Eric says a lot of things best.
Yeah.
I say a lot of things okay.
I think we all say a lot of things best. I don't think we say everything best.
We say we the best is what we
the
say.
best.
Yeah.
So Eric says...
Thank you, Nick.
Eric likes to describe college as either an apprenticeship or like trial and error. And Eric was more of an apprentice, wanted to go to school for film, and I was dead set on working in sports, and Jeff was someone who's in the other category, trial and error.
Yeah.
But there's neither one is right or wrong. It just I was pretty focused on working in sports. I didn't know what that really meant, but I stayed pretty much on pace and on track the entire time.
Did you ever think about like something outside of that?
No.
I always found that to be like the craziest thing because like what do you know about not you what does one know about sports, right? Like you say like, oh yeah, you're gonna work in the front office and you're going to be working with the players, and then one day you have that discussion with Dan and he's just like, I'm not. Like, I'm going to work in ticket sales and I'm going to sell, expensive suites and get high profile clientele, really nice seats.
I found pretty early on that I enjoyed the business of sports, and I wasn't like reading the New York Times business section growing up, but as I got more internships and volunteer things in college, like I just liked the behind the scenes of sports, and I never had a desire to be a GM or coach. And I wasn't athletically gifted enough to be a player.
You did play lacrosse.
Did play lacrosse, but I think it just was like, as I got deeper into it, I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. And I realized there was a whole business, just like in any industry, there's a music business and there's a sports business. And I wanted to work in sports.
While you were at Indiana University, you had an internship. Actually, you had a few internships.
Yep.
You were at the Brooklyn Cyclones, which called for you to be out in Brooklyn handing out pamphlets.
You were hanging out with the bird or whatever, right?
Yeah. I was talking about this the other day. I hung out with Sandy the Seagull. In minor league baseball, you do everything, which is great in many respects when you're younger because you can try everything. So I was literally the operator when you called the Cyclones office. I was in the box office when people wanted to buy tickets, and I would go around Brooklyn passing out pocket schedules. I also, during the season, we would pull out the tarp when it was raining. No matter what you were doing, you'd sell hot dogs. They also have a hot dog race where they have 3 people dress up as ketchup, mustard, and relish.
Wait, you were one of the
I was
things?
one of the hot dogs.
Did you win?
No. Now, Jeff, I know you're surprised, but it wasn't because I wasn't the fastest. It was because, or that I wasn't capable of winning.
Mm-hmm.
It was much like reality TV. It was scripted.
Oh.
And I was supposed to take a dive, and I did. I played my part.
Oh,
No, Dan, you should have. You had to win for the Rosenthals.
You know, I didn't think I was going to figure anything out today, but here we are. Oh. Yeah. Shout out to Greg Mayo, who just walked in the building.
Yo.
One of our special guests today. What's happening? How are you?
Did you know that Dan was a mascot and he lost in a race?
I think I did know that.
Oh, well.
Why do you
all
know
right.
more about my brother than I
I
do?
know. Greg, there's a microphone over
A
there.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, which one were you? Were you ketchup, mustard, or relish?
I don't remember, but I remember that I had to get in the costume, and it's not easy to see out of. 2, shockingly, it's not easy to run at it in. So I was happy to take a dive, and
All right.
Happy to take a dive?
yeah.
This is getting more suspect as we go along.
Yeah.
By the way, Greg, you can ask the questions that maybe Jeff and I cannot ask from our perspective, just because, like, you know.
I know a lot more about Dan than you do, it looks like.
Ask him a lot of ketchup-related questions.
I can do that.
Since you had that intern experience, pulling the tarp out, handing out schedules, running the races, now, Dan, you've been a senior vice president, you've been an executive, you've managed people. Do you have an appreciation for all the little things and the little people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always been one to try and know everybody's name in the organization. I've never been so high up in an organization that I've been too far from the bottom. I've probably been closer to the bottom than the top at this point. And yeah, I've always subscribed to the philosophy, never ask anyone to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. So, and we learned that pretty early on going to camp where if there was when you're working at camp, if there was a rapper with a W on the sidewalk or on the ground, or there was some garbage, you pick it up. Didn't matter if it was your job. So I think that's sort of permeated throughout my career.
You go on to be an intern again at the Indiana Pacers?
Yeah, I was.
Were you still handing out pamphlets in Indianapolis?
No, I was.
Got it.
I was in the ticket sales department. I made more intern work, so I was making copies and doing. But
Hanging out with Sandy the Seagull.
No, they had Boomer. But
Okay, Boomer.
Yeah.
My first week, I went to a Pacers. I think it was the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was Reggie Miller's last game.
Wow.
And I was so excited to boo Reggie Miller.
Yes.
in Indianapolis.
As a
good
proud
Knicks fan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good Knicks fan.
And to this day, now I probably shouldn't have done that because I would have gotten fired. But luckily, nobody saw me, or nobody that worked there saw me, and I made sure I made my presence felt.
Wait, was it a quiet boo?
No,
It's like a boo?
no,
A boo?
I made sure to put some emphasis.
Like it was like
on
haunted.
Yeah.
No, it was equal to the push that Reggie had during the Eastern Conference Finals in New York when he pushed Greg Anthony.
Yeah.
Blatantly pushed him and they didn't call a foul. So I made sure to reciprocate that with my.
Thank
my
you for
group.
your service.
Yeah, exactly. But Dan, you're out there in Indiana, and that is a professional franchise of the highest order.
Yep.
They are, perennial playoff contenders. They're, chock full of Hall of Famers from, the front office down.
Mm-hmm.
What do you learn about the business?
It's a grind. I mean, ultimately, like any business, you need to build relationships with your customers. You need to make sure you're being integrated in the community in every form and facet, so that when the team is winning, there's deep support around the community. When the team needs to invest in the building and needs to maybe pass a bill, that support is still there. When a team's losing, you still have those deep connections. And so, I worked a lot on the Indiana Fever, and we had to build up community support. So
That's the WNBA team.
WNBA team.
Rapper with a W.
Rapper with a W, yeah. So we had to hustle. So it's figuring out how to sell. It's learning how to build relationships, and it's learning how to position a product that may have a preconceived notion about it.
Okay, so then does that make it easier or harder to go to a city that has never won, that has the highest expectations year in and year out, Cleveland, Ohio?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think of it as one or the other. I thought when I was in college working for the Pacers, I was also working for the Indiana football office on one day a week, and I would make phone calls trying to sell Indiana football tickets for the football team.
How easy is that?
didn't know a lot about Indiana University athletics besides Bobby Knight, but not really a ton before I went there. I have become a huge Hoosiers fan since, but historically Indiana football is one of the worst, probably 10 teams
In the Big Ten?
in the nation.
Well,
and in my entire life, I think in 35 years they've been to less than 5 bowl games. This year we actually happen to be, I say good relatively. We've won 8 games. We're about to beat Tennessee in the Gator Bowl on January 2nd, I believe. So get ready, Tennessee fans. But what I was going to say is, at the time, we were terrible, and so nobody wanted to buy Indiana football tickets.
By the way, am I the only one who noticed that it went from like they never won a bowl game to we are now? And
Listen, it was pre me and post me. So I learned that when you make 100 phone calls, you're lucky if you get one person to pick up. And maybe out of every few hundred you get a one yes. So that when I went to Cleveland, that's the mentality I had. It wasn't necessarily going from Indiana Pacers to the Cleveland Cavs and thinking one market's better than the other. It was just, hey, I'm in a new market, I have a job to do, and I'm going to figure out how to do it.
before we get too far, I do want to ask a question about your time that was in college. You were there with Eric when you guys both went to see Kanye in New Jersey.
Yeah, so shout out to Ben Jonas, a friend from college. So Ben, when I was in school, I wouldn't go on like spring break, or I wouldn't go on like winter break, or go to like any on vacation. I would just come home to New York. And so I was coming home on spring break, and my friend Ben was going to come with me, and he was like, "Hey, like how far is Asbury Park from Westchester?" And I'm like, "It's kind of far." But we drove down to Asbury Park, went to the show. It was Kanye, John Legend, I think maybe at the time it was still John Stevens, playing keyboard, Miri Ben-Ari, and obviously our good friend Don C., who was DJ Offbeat, I think, at the time.
Yep.
Our good friend.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Again,
when was the last time you spoke to...
It's pre-Dan and post-Dan.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I've never met... I
Yeah.
think I know I've met Don C. that night, but I've never spoken to him since.
Yeah.
So
But you want to know what? A good friend nonetheless.
That's right.
They
But
left on
Shouts
great
to Don
terms.
C. He's
Yeah.
definitely listening to this episode.
Well, I think we're jumping around a little bit, but I think, in our relationship as brothers, people ask me in my professional life, when they hear what Eric and Jeff do, they want to know, that must be awesome. And I say it is, because I get the perks of Eric and Jeff's career, and they get the perks of mine.
Yes.
So when I say our friend Don C., it's because I'm absorbing your friendship into mine.
Okay.
Yes.
Much like, when I'm at a...
My good friend, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, when I was working for the Yankees, you guys got front row seats a couple of times.
that
Even
we
better
did.
than that, you would hit us up at like 2:00 on a Monday and be like, "Hey, I don't know what you guys are doing for lunch.
But
why don't
the
you
game
come
starts
to,
in 5 minutes. And
yeah, why don't you come up and use a suite?"
Yeah, so it works out for everybody. So our friend Don C. was
Yes.
at the show.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memories, because after the show, and I talk about this to this day, I think it's impressive what you guys did and do, because
I wasn't there, but Eric,
you weren't
yeah.
there, but you guys have an encyclopedic knowledge of music and rap, much like I do and many do about sports. And so Eric was able to coax and convince the people around Kanye that Eric was credible, because he knew lots of people and what some of the things they were working on, the businesses they were starting, and the film business they wanted to get in. And he built a good relationship, and obviously that Eric's told that story before. But there was just 3 of us hanging by the tour bus, and then there was another 2 or 3 groupies. So it was a really small crew.
Yeah.
We obviously didn't go on the tour bus. The groupies did. But Eric bought his Consequence mixtape, and the rest is history. But that was a really cool experience and an awesome show, just because to say, hey, we remember Kanye back then. We were kind of on the train first.
Yeah.
So wait, so it was Ben's idea to go down?
Yeah, I mean, Ben was, again, he didn't know a lot about the area, and so he's like, hey, I saw this show is going to be in Asbury Park, and I said, I think it's far, but we can go. And I asked Eric, he's like, yeah, why not? And Eric drove us down, and that was it.
Ben has not been getting enough credit for your story, Eric.
I guess not. Shout out to Ben.
Shout out to Ben.
I believe that when you moved to Cleveland, both Greg and Jeff visited you. Is that correct? Or is that Indiana?
It was.
Greg came to, you came to Indiana.
I did, and so did Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there
okay,
together. That was when they lost my luggage, and then I got spilled on and all the other stuff. Yeah. It's a long story we don't have to go into right now. But yeah, that's next
Not
time.
today.
That's next time.
Yeah. But
You do have a lot of good stories.
I mean,
did you?
it's my life, man.
Did you? So this is your best friend. I'm not introducing you. I'm saying.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. But did you, think anything of Dan going to the middle of the country and away for the first time?
I honestly thought if anyone was capable of it, it was Dan. Of our friends, I thought like Dan was driven in a way that a lot of us. I mean, we were all driven in our own ways.
How would you describe Dan in high school, and how would you describe all of our friends?
That's a good question. I mean, we were nerds. All of us were kind of nerds. I'll say that.
Sure.
I feel like Dan had an extra interest in. I mean, obviously, what he ended up going to do, and was sort of like I'm gonna go wherever it takes to get that thing, right? And we all sort of like scattered a little bit. That like there were certain friends like Bob or Rich or somebody. Their interests were like purely academic. It seemed, right? So like. It was wherever that was, but you could do that anywhere. You know what I mean? Dan was going to go where he fit in to find and get a leg up as quickly as possible. And if that meant the Midwest, then that's kind of what it was for him. You know what I mean?
Do you feel the same way?
I mean, I guess because that's what it ended up being. But I think that we all, I'd say I would describe us on the smarter side of the. Certainly, we're all on the nerdier side of our high school class. But we weren't. I think what was cool about our group was that we all sort of flowed between lots of different groups. Our high school wasn't like the jocks and the nerds as much as many
Right.
are maybe
Sure.
perceived on TV. But Greg played baseball. I played lacrosse and ran track. Bob and Rich ran track. Shin ran track. So not everybody was.
Everybody ran track except for me.
You didn't play sports, but you were in the.
Everyone was
either.
in marching bands.
Yeah, we were all in the marching
Thanks, Eric.
band.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's
and
helping.
I don't.
Not
say
everyone
that-
played in marching band, but everyone
I did play in
was.
marching band.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I mean, we were in lots of different groups. I mean, I think that we all did different things. And, Jeff, you and I rapped in high school. I think we were all in different groups. And I think that's what made us, and we got along with everybody.
The thing that surprised me actually was how little we saw Dan once he went to school. Right, like he came home during breaks and stuff, but like, hey, summer internship, wherever it is, that's where I'm going. In between, during some breaks, I got to stay out and do work. I got to stay out and meet people and do the thing.
Yeah.
I was, I don't know if surprised is the right word. I was impressed, I think is what it was. It was like, all right, here we go. He's going to do whatever it takes.
Dan stayed out there, and it was his 21st birthday, which was the first one that he wasn't back in New York to celebrate. And so Jeff and I spearheaded this thing that Greg was a big part of, where we did a birthday tribute video to Dan with like 40 or 50 friends.
Right, because it was my first one not being with Dan.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
And so we put together this big video with like sketches and with sincere moments and callbacks and a lot of fun that we sent out to you, with a lot of surprises in there too. Did you miss home? Were you so focused on business that you were like, oh, this is where I have to be, and I don't even put emotion into it?
Yeah, I think I'm of course I missed home because there'd be birthdays or there'd be events that I wasn't there for, not just in college but in Cleveland. But in particular with that video, when I was in college, I missed. I mean, it was weird to not be there, and I think you could tell by my tone when I responded to the phone call, which was Eric and Jeff kept calling me and saying, "Hey, we sent you a package. Let us know when you got it." And I was like, "Okay." And then, "Hey, did you get it yet?" "Nope." "Did you get it yet?" "No." "I'll call you when I get it." And then I finally get it, and they're like, "Okay, can you watch it right now with us on the phone?" I'm like, ugh. And so I was sort of like being a jerk about it because I was like, I don't need all this like attention to watch this DVD, even though that I later found out like with lots of, love and thought and humor, you guys
and
made
cameos from girls who you barely knew in high school.
Yeah, so it was a great way.
It
was an amazing way to be a part of something that I was not there for, but. I think I was pretty focused on I'm in Indiana. I appreciate the call and, obviously love you guys but I'll see you soon.
Yeah. But okay, so you took the job in Cleveland. Did you think of going anywhere else?
Well, I guess kind of like college. I mean, thinking about how serious I was about going anywhere else. I applied to a bunch of schools, but it was really between Indiana and Miami, Florida. And man, my life would be very different if I went to University of Miami.
Of course.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But it never was really a serious consideration. I never visited Miami. Cleveland was the same thing. I was getting recruited pretty heavily by a lot of different places, and I suppose I took some more serious
Recruited by like other NBA teams, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I was very fortunate that I had a lot of job offers out of college. I think I had like 8 or 10 job offers.
What is that like?
All around the NBA.
Getting a job offer. I've literally never gotten one.
Yeah. So I mean, I consider probably the ones I consider the most were Atlanta with the Hawks and the Cavs. Those are probably the 2 most serious. But
not Phoenix or Chicago.
I could have gone to Sacramento, Charlotte.
You could have discovered DaBaby.
Yeah, I could have. There was a few other cities that I'm going blank on, but I think I had a bunch of different offers, but Cleveland was like in our industry, Cleveland was the foundation of the place that everybody worked. Anyone who had become an executive at any other team had worked either for this franchise or for the people running the franchise. It was almost like, hey, you're being recruited to join the right family in the mafia, and you're going to the right one.
Right.
Not to say that I worked for the mob.
Right.
But there are families in our industry, right? And I joined a family that has being a part of this family has been extremely beneficial to my career.
This is when LeBron is there the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never been to Cleveland in my life. I never watched a Cavs game before I moved there. So, yeah, LeBron was there the first time. He had been there for 3 years prior.
Okay. So you're hitting on like prime young LeBron time.
Yeah, my first year, 2006, just made the playoffs for the first time.
Right on.
And there's a lot of excitement in the city. And so we get there, and the Cavs make the playoffs for the first time. This is a city that is extremely passionate about their sports, haven't won anything in 40 plus years at the time. And yeah, people, we were talking about, I remember we were talking, I'd be calling people on the phone and saying, now is your time to get in. This is like Chicago in the early 90s with Michael Jordan. Like, you're going to keep kicking yourself if you don't buy season tickets today, because we're going to be sold out for the next 30 years.
Did that work?
To some people it did. Unfortunately, Cleveland is a massive football town. So people, even though the Browns suck, people would much rather have 10 or 8 or 10 or 20 Browns season tickets, which is an enormous amount of season tickets, as opposed to buying 4 Cavs season tickets.
You drove around
at that time,
surrounding like counties, and what was the furthest you drove to meet with companies to try to sell them on tickets?
I mean, not my first year, but we went to Pittsburgh, went to Columbus, which are 2.5 hours away, to sell season tickets and suites. And part of that is because there's no NBA team in Western Pennsylvania and none in West Virginia, and none in Ohio besides the Cavs. So we had that whole market, and so we might as well leverage that to try and sell. And Cleveland's a market where I almost ran out of people and companies to call to buy premium seats and season tickets and luxury suites, because hey, you might as well go fishing in other ponds, and people, there are a lot of basketball fans in Pittsburgh. So
when you were stuck out there in a Cleveland winter,
oh yeah,
is there anything worse?
The fact that you have to think about it.
I mean, look, New York has its own things, that special qualities, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, Cleveland winter is no joke. I'll say that. Much like working in baseball, which I'm sure we'll get to, is no joke.
Well, luckily you lived down the street from the stadium.
Yeah, I lived across the street, so I had no excuse, unfortunately. So when it would snow 3 feet, and by the way, there's no such thing as a snow day in Cleveland. So for those people who grew up in Minnesota or Iowa or Cleveland or Detroit, you're like, yeah, nodding your head. If you grew up in New York or DC and you're like, oh, snow days, yeah, we love those. Cleveland, you don't have snow days. So when it snowed literally 2 or 3 feet, we would just go to work.
Yeah.
And that was it. There wasn't like, hey, we're going to have a 2-hour delay this morning. It was just you go to work.
So you worked a lot.
Yeah, I think, but
that was also your social life.
In any business, you get out what you put in. So in sales, in order to be successful, I had to put in extra time, because that's how I was successful. So yeah, I would go in really early and stay real late. And also I was working games and weekends and trying to build a network in a city I didn't know anybody.
And you lived down the street from House of Blues, and you would go to different concerts.
I saw Drake when he was coming up. I saw B.O.B. when he was first coming up. I saw the Cool Kids.
Yep. 88 Keys.
88 Keys I saw.
Mick Boogie and Terry Urban.
I didn't see them at House of Blues, but Mick Boogie DJ'd Cavs games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Roots you saw.
I saw the
in
Roots
Cleveland?
at House of Blues.
Oh, you went to the Jay-Z thing.
Yeah, I mean in Cleveland when you work for the biggest, the arena. So we had Justin Timberlake, Jay-Z, the Police, Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, and Elton John. So we had every major show coming through that part of the country would come, and I would be able to, that was my. So you said that was my social life.
Yeah.
Just all my friends, we would just get a suite and go watch a concert.
Was there a ceiling for what you could do in Cleveland, Ohio?
Not necessarily, but I think I always had a draw to grow outside the organization, and so yeah, I eventually had to leave to do that. But great people, phenomenal organization, and it's a really good city. I think there's a lot of very good culture in that city that doesn't get appreciated. But
Like what?
There's an art museum that's fantastic. I think it's actually free. One of the best in the country. There's one of the best symphonies. Cleveland Orchestra is there too, and is renowned. There's a lot of good food, but there's also not
3 foot snow days.
3 foot snow days. There wasn't a ton to do. Even though I referenced a few things, like you run into those things pretty quickly.
Yeah, you had a great apartment, which means it was a big apartment.
I had a great big apartment that was extremely cheap, and had I purchased it, I would have made a lot of money during the the NBA Finals runs, the World Series, the Republican National Convention. I would have paid for my apartment 10 times over.
You went to one finals with LeBron?
Yeah, my first year out of college, we went to the NBA Finals, and I was like, this is going to be every year. It's going to be incredible. We got swept by the Spurs. and I hate to say it, I hope I'm not bad luck, but every sports team I've worked for has not been to a championship since. Now, I've worked for the Super Bowl, so I guess that counts.
Yeah.
But
You've been at some pretty spectacular games.
Yeah,
LeBron's game winner in the playoffs, right? Against the
Magic.
Were you at the IU game?
No, not against
That was the
Kentucky.
year before.
Oh, okay.
No. The biggest IU game I saw probably was IU Duke, where we
Was that in football?
we played Duke. They were number 1 in the country. They had JJ Redick and Sheldon Williams, and they started the game off like 18-0,
Man.
and then we came back and took the lead, and then we lost.
BU almost beat Duke in the in some basketball game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, look
So,
at that. Shout out to you, Jeff.
Yeah. My school has a very rich
Very rich.
sports.
I do want
legacy.
to jump forward just for a second to acknowledge that you were working for the Yankees for Derek Jeter's final game, which was very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, well, before that, I worked a lot of great events. Mariano Rivera's last game.
Yep.
Derek Jeter's 3,000 hits.
Yeah.
And then Derek Jeter's last game.
Yeah,
So,
we get it. Every single Yankees game is special in its own
But
way.
Derek Jeter's which one were we at?
I was able to get 4 tickets.
Yeah.
To Derek Jeter's what was going to be Derek Jeter's 3,000 hit.
Yeah.
So I offered 1 ticket to Eric.
Yeah.
1 ticket to Jeff.
Yeah.
And since Greg, out of all of us, grew up as a Yankees fan.
He's the Yankees fan.
Hey.
I said, hey, Greg, I got 2 tickets for you for what's going to be Jeter's 3,000
Greg,
hit game.
What'd you say?
I said absolutely, of course,
Wouldn't
and
miss
I will
it.
be there on time for inning 1. I can't wait. Oh, it's going to be so great.
So I got there before the first inning. Eric?
I was also there before the first inning.
Dan, you were there for work.
I was there early. Jay-Z showed up after the game started.
Okay. Oh, well.
Now, Jeter had to get, I think, 3 hits that day, if I recall. 2 or 3 hits. Jay-Z showed up after at least 1 hit.
Okay.
Happened. So he was a little closer.
Yeah,
to
he had
2,000.
29.98.
Yeah. Listen, Jay-Z is smarter than all of us. He knows what to do. Okay,
So
get
so
it.
he showed up fashionably late.
Yeah.
And Greg?
Not so fashionably late. It's the first inning, and of course Derek hits 29.99.
Yeah.
And I'm listening on the radio. Dan, when he moved to New York, when he started working for the Yankees, he got a parking pass.
Yeah.
For the employee lot right next door, and
Yeah, because Dan drove back to New York.
Exactly.
And needed a place to park.
and
his
then
car.
also in another tangent story, gave me his car, which I wrecked after a few
Hey, man.
months of
Not on
owning.
purpose.
No.
Not on purpose, of course.
You were like in the middle of a bunch of cars. That
Yes,
hit
it's
each
a
other.
very long story.
Yeah.
Again, for another podcast.
yeah,
A story
exactly,
for another podcast. So he hits 29.99 in the first inning, and I think I'm in the Lower East Side or something at the
Yeah,
time.
you know where we were? In a suite.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. I was picking up my girlfriend at the time. We were going to come into the game. That's what I used the extra ticket for. So we're on our way up. She had to do like a hair appointment or something. I'm like, sure, we'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
Baseball games take forever.
Exactly. And I understand how hits work. You know, if you get up to bat twice, you get 2 hits, then there you are. Anyway, so finally get up to the Bronx. A lot of traffic, a lot of craziness. It's the third inning, I think it is. And Jeter's back up again, and I'm listening on the radio outside in traffic, waiting to pull into the parking lot. And I have the windows down. I can literally hear the crowd over the side of the stadium. And, of course, the radio's on a delay.
Yeah.
So Jeter's up to bat. Oh, my God. Here's the big moment. I'm sitting in the car, and I'm furious. My girlfriend's hair looks fine, I guess. Who cares? And then, of course, I hear the crowd go absolutely insane. And then I hear on the radio, oh, my God, Derek Jeter, it is high, it is far, it is God. Derek Jeter, 3,000 hits is a home run. Oh, my God, this never happens. Holy.
Were you in the lot?
I was not in the lot
Oh,
yet.
damn. Oh, you could have been on the premises.
I was about, you know what I was? I was probably, from that moment, I was like 5 minutes from being in the suite. And I walked in, and my head was in my hands, and,
Yeah, your
what
heart
can I
was,
tell you? My heart was
full.
somewhere else,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So, Dan, you worked in Cleveland for how many years?
4.5.
You're selling lots of tickets, but you were not in a managerial position.
No.
At that time, Dad got sick.
Yeah.
Where were you when you got that phone call?
I was at home. I was in my apartment at the top of the stairs and got the call, and obviously was extremely sad and upset, and just powered through.
Yeah, well, I mean, what do you have any friends out there to talk to?
Yeah, I spoke to some of my close friends, some who had similar situations with sick family members or other loved ones, and so that helped to just be well surrounded. But being far from home during that time was difficult.
Yeah, I mean, and not just because Greg's here, but Greg was a big help. Obviously, like when we lost our dad, because he had lost his, and there's one thing that I always think of that Greg said, where he's like, you lose the cheat code. It's like someone has all the answers, and all of a sudden they're not there anymore. So you're not home, you're in Cleveland, and how do you power through?
For me, it was just, and this wasn't necessarily right or wrong. What I knew was just continue to work hard and sort of try and compartmentalize my emotions, which is not easy to do. And again, may or may not be the right thing that I should have done at the time. But what I did was just compartmentalize it and really try and live every day to the fullest and just kind of operate at the highest level I could. And I was able to have a very good year, and I wanted to share good things with Dad and Mom and you guys from Cleveland. And obviously, when Dad passed, it was more about carrying on the legacy and just doing my best to do what I knew how to do, which was work really hard and make myself and my family proud.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, we're coming on 10 years in a few days, and that's just like,
It's crazy.
it is really crazy. It's really, really hard to believe, but you do make it through, and you do sort of find it within you to sort of, establish your own path, and carry things on. So, but it's a weird sort of confluence of events that LeBron leaves around that time, that you...
In the spring.
Yeah, in the spring, you start to look for new opportunities. Did you think about staying there?
I mean, every summer I would think, all right, I'm going to go back to New York, and then I would just stay one more year, and then I would get promoted, or one more year, and it was a great time to be there. It was a great organization. That's why I went there to begin with, and I remember how crazy it was on July 1st, 2010, during that whole free agency time. And
by the way, there was a kid who walked up to us outside of the 40/40 Club, had a T-shirt that said like,
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
you
Let's
know,
get LeBron back or
yes,
something.
let's bring LeBron in or something like that.
Right.
And Dan saw that video and was not happy with us. Like we held up this shirt and we were just like, yeah, come on, LeBron, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like
I forgot about
you
that.
can't, like, I always say to people, I grew up as a Knicks fan, but when you work for a team, you're the team behind the team. They pay your bills. Like you're a fan of that team. It's like working for Apple and carrying around an Android, which,
Right.
by the way, I know is ridiculous anyway.
Yeah, because who would ever?
Yeah.
Who would ever have an
working
Android?
Yeah.
working for Coke and
That
drinking
is
Pepsi.
very silly.
By the way, when Shinsuke and his green bubble
Oh,
text
God.
ruins all of our group chats.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was really pissed off because I was like, look, that LeBron leaving would affect my livelihood, and I would hope that you guys were not cheering for that. So that's why I was pissed off. And so
Thank you for explaining that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so coincidentally, in quotes, LeBron left
Yeah.
in
Well, no, but what was it like the night that he announced? You watched it, right?
yeah, we had to go in the office, and it was like a punch to the stomach because he's from Akron. We felt we had put him in a great position to continue to be the centerpiece of the organization. I obviously was not a part of the courting of him.
I mean, you had shared an elevator with him.
I have shared an elevator, but we haven't
An airplane,
spoken.
yeah.
I've been on an airplane with him a couple of times, but it wasn't like I was involved in that process.
Are you
And
guys-
maybe that was the problem.
Yeah,
I was just going to
actually.
say, what if you had said something in
Yeah,
that elevator?
exactly. So anyway, he
See
leaves.
something, say
There's
something.
a punch
Dan.
to the gut. Dan Gilbert sends a letter out that night
in Comic Sans.
in Comic Sans, which was how Dan would write every email. That was his thing.
Yeah.
Every email?
Yeah, he was Comic Sans all day, every day. So that when it comes out in Comic Sans, it was like normal.
Yeah.
It was like, okay. To us, to everybody else, it was not. So he writes this letter. Everyone in Cleveland thinks it's the best thing in the world. Again,
Yeah.
now years removed, I think it was probably not the best move.
We're going to win before LeBron will ever win a championship.
Yeah, and
Somebody said
he
that.
also said some things about LeBron, which in the heat of the moment, as a fan, you say, but you know, when you're a business partner and you're a executive of a basketball team, you probably shouldn't say those things. So he took it a little bit. He took it very far, and obviously LeBron took that stuff personally, and as he should.
Yeah.
And that fractured the relationship. But in any case, I got recruited to go to the Yankees, and it worked out very well for me to leave at that time and take on a leadership role.
Big difference between being, you know, an employee and selling tickets and driving around, you know, all of Ohio to meet with all these people to managing a staff. Were you ready?
Yeah.
Damn right.
Yeah, yeah.
End of story.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was right. I thought I was. I remember when I walked into our senior vice president's office and I said, I just hired the best staff that's ever been hired in the history of sales.
Wow.
And he was like, okay, here's your number, go hit it. And it wasn't the best thing, but there was some good people on that team. And,
Yeah.
But you learn a lot. I think what I did really well is I just learned from my mistakes, and that's how I'd get better every year.
I mean, I think you were excellent at building culture.
Yeah, I mean, I had to learn. You learn from your mistakes. So I thought this is how we're going to do things, and I tried a couple things, and some of the things worked, and some of the things didn't. But
What did work?
I led by example. Tried to be the hardest working person. We have another special guest. Now this is actually a mystery to me. Oh my God!
We're doing like a "This Is Your Life."
Yeah, I know.
sort of
Yeah,
thing.
basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
Basically. No. David, that's Nick. David, you can sit over there. Greg has a microphone that you can use if you'd like. You have any
Wow.
questions for Dan, feel free to ask. We're up to Dan working for the Yankees. He's now working in management, you know, so he has a staff for the first time. And
I can't believe David Cho is here.
Yeah.
Honestly, it
Big
took me,
get.
like,
Big
it,
get for
it
It's the Real.
legit took
Can we
me-
talk about how
It took me 15 minutes to get here. I'm not even
out
joking.
of 294 episodes, David Cho episode number whatever is my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Absolutely true.
You're biased.
No.
Because we're friends.
I listened to it multiple times in Costa Rica, and I was on vacation, and I just thought it was a great episode. And
I'll
I
be
think-
honest, Dan, sounds like a bad trip.
yeah, it was a bad trip. And you're the first person I think who had like a bonus like secret part of the podcast.
What would you say your top 3 takeaways from your Yankees job were?
I know why they win,
Which is what?
One is you have to have good leadership. You have to put people in positions to win, and you let people do their job. I have a philosophy and not change course every 5 minutes. What the Yankees do really well is they're steady, and they'll continue to try and improve, but they have a very high standard, and they don't settle.
Team is so important.
Yeah.
Team is important.
It's crazy to me. Like I feel like a lot of my life, I feel like I've worked with like really good teams, and I don't think I realized it at the time how important having really talented people around you is like to the entire process. Like
You've also worked at some giant corporations.
yeah, but like all that stuff, it's like you only really work with like the people around you. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, okay, great job, Bob Iger, I guess, but it's just kind of like. But also, I think it's just like the immediate people around you really being good at what they do.
I learned that at a bunch of places I've worked too, which is how much culture matters and how to build it, how to crush it. I was talking to one of my college roommates this past weekend, and he works for on the coaching side of a NFL team, and everything that we talked about in terms of why they're not winning or why they would win or places he has that have won, it's because of culture, and that all those same things he was talking about. I was like, oh yeah, that's the same stuff that impacts revenue, sales, people being happy in their jobs. It matters.
You listed a couple of things about working at the Yankees that you learned and were very important, but you forgot perhaps the best, most important thing is the stories about the interviews and the resumes and the hirings and firings that I love so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones.
I don't know how many you can say, how much more time we have left, but if you got a couple hours, the world needs to know.
I mean, yeah, there were some good ones.
Just give us one or two little tidbits, because I mean, without names, of course, unless you want.
Yeah,
whatever.
no, well, I mean, I have to protect identities, of course. Everything that's on Seinfeld is true.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So anything that happened on Seinfeld that George did or George Steinbrenner did, there's an element or is exactly true.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it there.
Yeah.
George needs
For
his
example-
calzones, man.
Now, when Greg referenced my car when I moved back to New York, I kept my car in the Yankees parking garage for 6 months straight. Didn't leave one time. So that's
Hard worker. Yeah, Dan's a hard worker.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everybody did compare Dan to Costanza in high school.
Yeah, I had some Costanza.
Just why?
Pause.
Why?
Dan was very aggrieved, I would say, in high school.
Who did people compare you to in high school, Joe?
Dan?
Transitive.
So yeah, everything on Seinfeld was true. There was one time somebody sent me a resume, and in the email that they sent the resume with, they said, like, here's why I should work for the Yankees, da 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 da. P.S. I'm a big fan of It's the Real, and your brothers, and would love to work with you and them one day.
What'd you do with that resume?
Delete. There was one, if you go back to the episode that you got, we all told stories on. I don't remember which
The
episode.
open mic.
night.
Open
episode.
mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read an email that I got about some guy. I thought he said, "I you should hire me because I'm great at attention to detail. I do a lot of research, and I would be a fantastic resource for the organization. In fact, I am a big fan of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and the episode that you were on is incredible."
Follow-up question, were you on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Well, let's just say that the guy who claims his attention to detail is so good
Yeah.
did not have good attention to detail.
Yeah.
I was
Wait,
not
so you
on-
weren't?
Yeah, I was not on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
How much money did you win?
I wonder why he thought that. Have you gotten that before ever?
No, and then I Googled and I found, look, Dan Rosenthal is not a unique name.
Right.
So there was another Dan Rosenthal, shocker, on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We don't look the same. We don't. I don't know anything about
He
him.
doesn't work for the
He
Yankees.
does not, and so he must have thought I was that guy, or he was me, or whatever.
If all of us were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, who would your phone call be to?
Mine would be to Greg.
Mine would be to Greg too. Yeah.
Greg, are you that good at trivia?
I'd call Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm so honored, guys. Wow.
I feel like Greg would call me.
I'd call Jeff.
Honestly, I mean, I don't know how it works. I don't know if there's like you can list like 2 or 3 names because
No.
it would depend on the topic.
Are you really about to say that you're not going to call me? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying I'd call you. I'd call
Jeff
you.
has a good mind for trivia.
No, I would call you. I really would.
Yeah.
I would call you.
Yeah.
This reminds me of when Greg and
Does he?
This reminds me of when Greg and I were in Spain this summer.
What up?
And we were talking about one of Greg's undercover favorite shows, which is Amazing Race.
Yeah.
And I go, Greg, we've been on vacation a few times.
Check that cupboard up there.
Would you choose me? And it was without hesitation. Nope.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Dan, I love you, but not my Amazing Race partner.
So
It's
you
not
would
going to
go
happen.
with Bob?
I would go with Bob. Yeah.
Not Shin.
Not Shin.
By the way, Shin.
I
was
mean,
also
Shin, it'd be
invited to this.
incredibly entertaining.
Has not made it.
That show would be incredible. Actually, you know what? Like, Shin would be dope. But
would be great.
it'd be incredibly entertaining. They're both. See, the problem with Bob.
Yes.
Not to get into much detail about someone who's not here, but exactly. We're gonna get into the weeds about Bob for a minute. Let me just go there for a second. Track star
Not to be a proxy to the listener, but who the fuck is Bob?
Bob.
We went to high school together, so these are all my high school friends that we're talking about.
In 3
Our
words,
high school friends, sorry.
fast, non-athletic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's pretty good.
There we go.
That's pretty good. And then Costanza and a guy you wouldn't call for trivia.
Exactly.
Got
exactly.
it. So, Dan, your Yankees experience lasted how long?
I was there for 5 years.
No championships.
No championship.
Thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me. They won the year before I got there, and I hope they're on the verge of winning.
Well, actually,
soon.
if they had won, would you have gotten a ring?
Yeah.
There was a time when Rick Ross had a suite
Yeah.
at the Yankees, and you had full reign of the building, and so you went over to the suite.
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I wanted to go say hi to Rick Ross, and I walk in there, and I should back up by saying, working in sports, I've been really fortunate to interact with a lot of people who should have no idea who I am, but also I've been afforded to meet a lot of people that you guys know in a different environment, which has always been fun. So I walk in the suite, and the first person that looks at me is Angie Martinez, and Angie looks at me and goes, "I know you. I don't even know you." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm the other brother." Yeah. And she goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I work here." "What are you doing here?"
So I mean, she was there to watch a baseball
Yeah,
game.
that is
And
the
being pretty
answer. Yeah,
self-explanatory.
which was a relatively similar exchange.
Should have
that I
called
had-
David.
that I had at Jeter's last game with a bunch of people as well.
So you worked there for 5 years.
Yeah.
You left right when Derek Jeter left. So when LeBron left, you left. When Jeter left, you left. And
Yeah.
Fucking bandwagon Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was very coincidental both times. I'll say that.
But living in New York City is much different than living in Cleveland.
Hell yeah.
You were also
Whoa. Real shots at Cleveland. Wait, Eric, before you go on, can
Yeah.
I ask Dan one question?
sure.
Who would you say the most interesting person that you ran into by way of Cavs or Yankees or whatever has
I
been?
worked with Michael Bloomberg and got to meet him a couple times at the Yankees.
Presidential candidate.
Presidential
Michael
candidate.
Bloomberg?
Yeah. At the time
It's an interest. He makes he's doing things that you're kind of like,
Who, Dan or
no,
Bloomberg?
Bloomberg. Or
Yeah,
both.
no, I mean, he was my client. I didn't interact with him all that often. I worked with his assistant very closely.
How
but
tall is he?
He's
Small guy, big guy.
he's
small.
shorter than us, but he's not like
That's a range though.
no.
Everyone's shorter
I
than
think he's
Jeff.
honestly, I think he's like 5'8",
Oh wow.
Taller than you expected?
5'9".
Smaller than I. 5'8"
Oh,
is
I thought that he was
small.
going to be 5'8".
No, he's notoriously
really?
short. Yeah.
Yeah, he's short, but it's not like
Is that notorious?
Yeah.
I didn't feel like he was like
5'8"? Wow.
yeah.
Greg is the research department today.
Stat boy.
So yeah, I got to meet him at the mayor's office and get a tour of the mayor's office. That was a cool experience. I mean, I've met a lot of executives of major companies.
Who would you want to hear? Action Bronson?
No.
I did meet Action Bronson. At
How about J.R. Smith?
J.R. Smith? I also met at a Yankees game, and Kate Upton, and Chris Rock. So I've met,
I'm trying to think of what I wanted from Dan. I wanted a person with whom there's a story attached where it was just surprising. They were like
that's
a good
the J.R.
hang.
Smith one.
Yeah.
most of the people that I interacted with weren't necessarily famous. So a lot of the stories I have may just be very successful business people that none of us maybe have heard of. But, they had a lot of funny interactions with people. Like when celebrities would come to games, I was their
Liaison?
on the inside many times. And so the celebrity's assistant or their driver or their handler would call me when the celebrity got to the stadium, and I would meet the group and walk them in the stadium. One time, I got a phone call, and I picked up my phone, expecting it to be somebody's driver or their handler, and I said hello, and I go, Dan, this is Chris Rock. And I was like, oh my God. And then he was super funny. He ended up getting on the front page of the paper because he was him and Bobby Cannavale, and they together, and they got a foul ball hit right to him, and it was like all over the news because he didn't catch it. So I was like, I did my job. Yeah, Kate Upton, who I'd met a few times before, and for whatever reason, I thought, like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, we're best friends because we've met twice in her life.
Yeah.
Seems like a misread on your part, I'll be honest.
So I went in and hugged her like we knew each other, and she's like,
hugged her?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jesus, Dan.
me too.
Yeah, time's up. God damn.
And then I put her in the front row behind the Yankees dugout.
Out of guilt or
Yeah,
out of
exactly.
No,
To make up for it.
No, they were friends.
We were friends in my mind.
It's weird that I never went to a Yankees game, considering the
We can
damn
go.
clock.
Yeah. Well,
Greg almost didn't go to a Yankees.
So Kate got Justin Verlander wrote her a note on a baseball and threw it to her, and that was
This was at the beginning.
They were dating at the time, and then she wouldn't. We asked everyone to wear Yankees gear. Kate said, "Hey, I'm dating one of the players in the Tigers. Can we do something different?" We came to an agreement, which worked out for everybody.
The hug.
Yeah. Self-serving. And then she went on Michael and Kelly the next day and was like making up. She like flipped the story and basically said that we refused to let her wear Tigers gear, which is not what happened. So I'm correcting the record. One of my favorite stories, you're talking about interesting, is like Derek Jeter's last game, another day where everybody who's anybody was at that game. And so I walk in, into my normal spot, which was the lobby of the stadium, and Action Bronson was standing there, like looking a little bit confused, and I knew who he was, and he wasn't as big in terms of his popularity. He's certainly a big guy at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he was with his mother, and I said, "Hey, Action, like, I'm Dan. Nice to meet you. I'm happy to take you to your seats." He's like, "Oh, cool," and walked into his seats. He's a really good guy, and he was sitting in the front row right behind home plate.
Oh my God, Action Bronson just walked down.
Yeah. Also at that game, in A-Rod seats was Jay-Z, next to him Bobby Flay, and so I walked over to visit one of my actual clients who's sitting next to Jay-Z's group. I was talking to him for a little bit. It was Jay-Z, and then somebody that I recognized I'd never met before and was friends with Eric and Jeff. So I climb over my client and walk over, because Bobby Flay's group got up, and I walked over to Jay-Z's group, and I sat down. Jay-Z looks at me like he's like, "Oh, who's this guy walking towards me?" Like, kind of like leery as to why there's a fan going to come up to him at the game. And I don't say hi to Jay-Z. I sit down next to his friend, who is Mike Kaiser.
Who is our friend?
That's our friend. Yeah.
Eric and Jeff's friend. And he was like eating the world's biggest bucket of popcorn.
But the man loves popcorn.
And he was like mowing through popcorn. And he was so excited to see me.
Yeah.
He was like laughing. He couldn't contain himself. Because he was like, "What are you doing?"
There's an expectation there, right? Like Jay's probably like, "Oh yeah, everyone will, walk over to say hi to me, but who's coming over to say hi to the record executive?"
And I was wearing a suit. I had a credential. It wasn't like I was some stranger wearing that was a super fan, even though I am. So
Did you tell me you were friends with Kate Upton?
Kaiser.
Did you give him a hug?
Kaiser was super excited that I was talking to him and not Jay. So that made me happy.
Dan, you lived with us for quite a while in our old apartment 5 blocks from here.
I did.
And we had a whole bunch of musicians and entertainers stop by. And you would come home from your job at the Yankees.
Yeah.
And walk in on some podcast.
And people at the office would always be like, "How was your night last night?" I'm like, "Oh, I'd come home from work and Cardi B is sitting at my kitchen table." Dave One from Chromeo was like, literally like, he was like so surprised that there was another Rosenthal. He couldn't believe it. Most people were like, it was like kind of like they would like not process it fully, and I would just keep walking, so they didn't have time to digest it. But Dave One was so shocked. And then Yo Gotti, I walk in and he's literally eating barbecue and I was like, "This is amazing."
Was that when you guys were cooking the food?
No,
part of
but we
it,
weren't
but
cooking.
I feel like you guys only
No,
did
no,
that
Matt
for 3
Fast
episodes.
Oh yeah, Fast Out ordered barbecue, and I was like, "This
for
is
everybody.
From
Yeah.
where?
This is
Blue
amazing.
Smoke is Blue Smoke.
Yeah.
And I was like, "This is incredible." Yo Gotti's at my kitchen table eating dinner with me,
Yeah.
and then so that was pretty amazing.
I think it was also dope that like all the artists would be surprised when they heard like the keys jingle and like the door like suddenly open with no like provocation. It was just like
There was other times where I would try not to interrupt.
Yeah,
even
you
though-
used to sit on the stairs outside.
Yeah, but like
Wait, what?
Well, we would say, Dan, you do not have to sit outside, but Dan didn't want to interrupt the podcast, and so he would just like chill outside.
yeah. So, but like other things that happened that were funny were like you guys did your Dave Matthews Band's video.
Yep.
And ordered like $1 million in fake money.
yeah.
I just saw that on the table. And I was like, oh, I need to take a picture of that
Yeah.
later because it's just a great visual.
It is.
Yeah, so I took a picture of the bag full of money and put it on Instagram. And this girl I worked with was like, came into my office and was like, closed the door and goes, "What are you doing? What happened?" I'm like, and I was like,
What did she think you were doing?
I don't know, but I was like, it's not real.
Yeah.
Relax, it's all good.
I had that out
Because my caption on the picture was just another day at the office. she was like, "What is happening?"
I have a stack of that because you gave. Did you give them out or did I take one?
No, we gave them out.
We gave them out.
We labeled them as payola, and we put them in bags.
So I have one in my apartment.
Yeah.
And like one of the first few times like the cleaning lady came, she was always like, should I put this away? I was like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then she was like, wait, what do you mean? I was like, it's literally okay.
That's fine.
It was always fun, surprised to see who would come home, and also like to be a part of it was like, oh yeah, Swiss Beats is in my kitchen right now. This is freaking awesome.
Showtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Zone.
there was things that were just like a pride thing and be a part of. It was a cool way for me to be a part of what you were doing.
Is this the 12th day of podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be the one.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is it.
Cool.
You do end up moving out.
Yeah.
I know. I know that. You know that. We all know that.
Get your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so it's Yankees, and then what happens?
I got an opportunity to go to work for Madison Square Garden.
That's right.
And
And
I
then
was
how
like-
long did that go?
I was there for 2 years. It was an incredible sprint. Did a lot in a short time. Saw everybody from a lot of Knicks games that were not a lot of wins, but a lot of Knicks Rangers games. We went to the Eastern Conference Finals twice in my time there. I saw the Pope. I saw.
What was the Pope there for? Just the Knicks game?
No, he was there for himself.
He did like a thing.
He did his
an
thing,
event?
yeah, which was
He did a
weird
night.
because they, like that day.
How many nights did you do?
Just one.
360 or did
Yeah.
he? Did he?
It is weird.
Did he fill it up?
360 show.
He did. So he did. That's like what, like 16,000 people for him?
No, it was like it was probably 19 plus.
Oh, so he opened up the full floor.
Full floor.
What's his lighting rig
but,
like?
No, that's not true because they had a stage on the floor. It wasn't like the stage came out to like he was surrounded, but like the back was like really tight security. So like,
Understandable.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess it was not a full 360. It was
By the
probably
way-
270. But what's funny to me?
But he got 19,000 people in there.
yeah,
That's wild.
And
Is it?
It was a very
Yeah,
diff-
that's a pretty big.
But I feel like people probably came in from like all over.
I mean,
No, I just mean like that he could fit that many people into the garden, not
got
doing
it.
360.
Not that he's not popping.
yeah, I feel like Pope
Yeah,
is doing
the
The
okay.
Pope's big and like,
the
you know.
Pope-
I'm surprised he only did one night.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
the Pope-
How many nights did Billy Joel do?
Well, we had Billy does once a month. We had U2 for 8 straight shows when I was there. So
I mean, Aziz did 3.
yeah,
Yeah, so the Pope is really
Yeah.
just lacking out here.
yeah. But the
He needs
Pope,
a- he needs a
what was
different
crazy
street
about the
team.
Pope?
Yeah.
Not only was it not a comedy show or a boxing match or basketball or hockey game, it was a religious event. So like literally in the concourse by like the hot dog stand, they have people like doing confessionals with like.
Oh,
different-
really? Did
Yeah,
they set
yeah.
up the little like
A
booths
lot of like
or no?
a lot of like religious garb, like a lot of like people wearing different religious garb, and then his English is like not his first language, obviously, but he speaks English. But he would be speaking other languages throughout the ceremony, and on the scoreboard they would have like
Subtitles?
subtitles. But at one point he was speaking Italian, and they just wrote on the subtitle "speaking foreign language." Like, obviously. Thanks for sharing.
What was security like that day?
Insane. My office was literally 30 feet from the entrance to the garden because we were in Two Penn
Which
Plaza.
entrance? Oh, 2.
Two Penn Plaza. So there was a line from the arena, I think like 15 blocks. And then I had a special credential to get me in, and it took me 45 minutes to an hour just to get to like the 30 feet. They had CIA, FBI, New York Police Department. I mean, every agency was there. Get the dogs. It was and once
People guard or
you
whatever.
had to get there at a certain time.
Where did he come in the car?
Yeah, so you had to get there.
Pope Mobile?
Everybody had to be in the building at like, let's say 3:30. He was going to come at 4:30 or something like that. So everybody had to be there, like, and they were going to lock the building down before he came. And then he came in, did his thing, and then he
Did the Pope thing?
He left before anybody could leave. You weren't allowed to leave until he left.
You've worked for, the Garden. You worked for the Super Bowl. You went to consult for the Tokyo Giants.
Yep.
What did you know about the Tokyo Giants beforehand?
They're the biggest sports team in all of Asia. They're the Yankees of Japan. But that's about all I knew.
How much Japanese do you speak?
I knew before I went, I knew how to say konnichiwa.
Good.
And I knew a
start.
couple of phrases he taught me a couple of years ago, so I had to like refresh my memory.
Yeah.
Like one was doi tashimashite, which I don't remember what that means. I think that means like you're welcome, maybe.
There's like a handful of Japanese people like screaming at their phones right now.
I think that means you're welcome.
How disrespectful of Dan, right?
So I knew a couple of like phrases, but none that you can use in the same sentence. And then once I was there, I learned a few more.
Did you enjoy your time out there?
Amazing. Maybe it's my favorite place I've ever visited.
More than New York.
Well, I live in New York.
Yeah, but you said that it was like your favorite city.
That I've ever visited.
Yeah.
I don't visit New York.
I thought that we had talked about this off the mic, whatever. Yeah.
When you walk into the whole team meeting and the all hands meeting, when you first walk in,
Yeah.
what do you say to these people?
Great question. So I'd never done.
Thank you for coming through, Greg.
Come on now.
Wait,
Come
did
on.
you set that up for? Do you know this story? Or
No. I mean, we've talked at length about
No,
this.
I mean I'd never consulted before. So I sort of knew what I was doing. Obviously, I've worked in the business for a long time, so I'm not going in blind. But it's a new country I've never been to before, and so I didn't really know what to expect. So we walk into their office, and there were some things that were familiar, but in terms of how the office was set up, and my friend was like, "Okay, we're gonna have you speak to the whole staff," and I was like, "Oh, okay." It's like, "Do you want to say something?" I'm like, "Sure," unprompted and on the fly. And I made up something on the fly, and I was just like very happy to be here, and thanks for having me. And everyone was so in awe because I worked for the Yankees, and in Japan, baseball is like the sport. So if you work for the Yankees, like you're coming from like heaven. So everything I said was gospel to them.
Really religious pod today.
Yeah. Yeah, everything. So yeah, I said.
You said A, B, C.
Yeah.
Always be closing.
I did say that a couple times.
Damn right you did.
You were out there for a few weeks, traveled around, enjoyed yourself,
Yeah.
ate well.
The food in Japan and Tokyo is next level. David Cho gave me some great recommendations. In fact, he was just there, and the place he told me to go to, you just went to, and I was so jealous.
Wait, Jeff, did you end up going to visit him or no?
No.
Because I remember that was in the conversations.
That was I feel like I think that the idea was that if Dan was to go back, we would go again. But I don't think that we would be there. Like, you were only there for 2 weeks.
Right. And yeah, but I just remember every place I ate was like, this place is amazing. It wasn't like, oh, it's okay. This
I
place
mean, it's really like the culture of the place is like it's so optimized. There's
Yeah.
it's like everyone's just so on their shit. It's like you can go to the most shitty place and it's still really good because it's like they're really trying to make sure it's the best thing it can be.
Correct.
It's like you can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate your recommendations because the places I did go to were not the worst of the best. They were just amazing. So they were really good.
Hey, great job, me.
Great job by David.
Yeah.
Dan, you've traveled a bunch. You've been to a lot of different countries, taken a lot of really dope photos. What do you get out of your traveling experiences?
I just love seeing new places, and I do love taking pictures more so when I'm abroad just because it's a different scenery than I've seen. Greg and I went to Mallorca in September, and I just had never seen anything like it. It was like it wasn't even real. When I was in Japan, like, again, it was a place I just could never even have pictured before. So I think I love to capture those and really, as everybody else does, I do it all for the gram, right?
Well, yeah, but
I mean, you do
yeah, but-
love. So you do love Instagram, but you also love the hashtags that you put in for Instagram.
I do. I put a lot of thought into my travel hashtags, and that's partially why I do it. I think it's fun to have a calling card, and that's mine. One of my favorite
Instagram
ones.
hashtag.
I've done feeling good, feeling great, Britain. Money Cash.
That's a good one.
Money Cash, Costa Rica. That's my favorite one.
That's a great one. You gave me a couple too, man.
Jewish and Clark for when we went to,
Who was Clark? Did you go with someone named Clark?
no.
That one is better if you went with someone named Clark.
Oh, that's really
You
good.
get Clark in that situation. I mean, Jewish and Clark is good,
Yeah.
but it's really good if you have a friend named Clark.
Go
True.
with Clark Kent.
Yeah.
There you go. You should call him up.
I saw Clark when I was looking at apartments, and we saw Clark.
Yeah, I
Kent.
do remember. And his
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah, and he was
Yeah.
like, "What are you guys doing then here?" And like, Dan's buying an apartment. And he goes, "Oh, someone's rich." And I'm like, "No, I'm not rich." And also, while my social media game is not the broadest, I would say my game is very strong. And Barack Obama does follow me on Twitter.
Oh, there
and
we
not
go.
You guys.
There we
So-
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to find a way to bring that up.
Do you guys take that personally from Barack?
Yes. Yes, actually. Barack, if you're listening,
At Barack.
at Barack.
Should he be
Yeah, follow
at
your
Barack?
I just want to say this too. Like, it's not like he follows me. I joined Twitter. Eric and Jeff follow me, and the second person to follow me was Barack Obama.
So
Yeah.
we followed
Wow.
you first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Obama still didn't
It's
follow us.
amazing, actually. How did that happen,
That's pretty
Dan?
dope.
Hey,
Jeez.
And
Yeah.
you were a private account, right?
yeah,
So that's an extra level. Barack definitely clicked the button, right?
yeah.
Yeah, Brock was just sitting on the
Oh,
can one morning. He was scrolling
in
Twitter and
office, by
found
the
it.
way. This
Yeah.
wasn't like post-op. He was in
No,
office.
did you text him beforehand or something?
Jeff, I don't want to get into my communication with the former president of the United States, but listen, he follows me on Twitter,
Yeah.
does not follow anybody else in this room.
Oh,
he follows
wait.
me.
Wait, I was like, nobody else?
Do you have any more questions for Dan?
What's your favorite verse that you've rapped?
Wow.
No comment.
Wow. Wow. Good question. Good question.
I think I only have one. I don't think there's only one verse that. Oh,
Tell us.
That's not true.
One? That
I've
you've
rapped more
rapped?
verses, but there's only one that's like. I didn't write any of the rhymes I've ever rapped. Not
What?
one of them.
Not one?
Yeah, you did.
That's not true.
Yes,
This
it is.
No, it's revisionist history.
Nope. You guys wrote them all for me.
Wow.
That's not true.
We wrote some.
Anyway, it's cool, like as we've talked about before, to be a part.
I know.
Wait, Dan, I do have one last question. Like, what was it like the first night you didn't live with Jeff?
What were you saying?
That I've been able to meet a lot of people through you guys. So like, you guys have talked about like how cool it is to be around people we all looked up to and listened to, and like thought just love their art so much, and then to be able to go to a barbecue with the Locks, like that was I think my sliver of your life is incredible. When Styles hits me up on Twitter, like, and I love that. But I've met a lot of cool people who I never would have met without you guys, like David Cho, obviously, Karen Rose, John Karamanica. I was at, and I mean, so many, all the Henny Palooza, Duce Palooza guys that I've gotten to meet and be a part of, and just to be a fly on the wall to what you guys have done. I mean, even people that I was in Minnesota at one of the biggest and best games in Minnesota sports history, which is now called the Minnesota Miracle, which was one of the biggest games in Vikings history. They beat the Saints on a last-second touchdown, and it was incredible atmosphere. And to my right was Bridget Kelly,
Very awesome.
which was someone I would have never met without you guys. And that was like a thing where we never even met before. I was like, oh, my brothers. Same thing with DJ Ski when I was at Minnesota. When I was down in Atlanta, I met a bunch of people through you guys. I mean, it's been really cool to say, like, oh yeah, I was in the studio with Nipsey Hussle. And obviously, the respect that I have for him and what he's built, and obviously his legacy he's left behind. To say I got to meet him once was just incredible when we were down in Atlanta. So yeah, I think like when we go out to LA and just to be able to ride around with you guys, and I remember even going back when I used to come back from Cleveland, and we would get recognized, and I was like, this is weird, right? And you're like, oh no, it only happens when you're here. So now, like, to live in New York with you, and now to be on your podcast is sort of like a surreal moment. Even now, my friends who know you guys or know your friends that don't know them but listen to your podcast, like my friend, shout out to Dave and Rob Glenn, but Dave lives in Milwaukee. And one time he's like, oh, dude, this guy Mouse Jones is amazing. And I'm like, the fact that you know Mouse Jones is like blows my mind. Like, so it's cool to see how broad your network is, and also how much my friends have really embraced what you guys do, because like, everyone thinks it's super cool.
But
Well, I think
also,
it's
every single one of our friends likes you more than us.
Well, yeah, that's why. Yeah, I mean, again,
I wouldn't say
A lot of
necessarily us. I would say maybe make it just you guys.
yeah.
Thanks, David.
But every time I see like Rory or Karen or they always David, like I get like
Ashley.
Ashley, I'm always the favorite. Yeah, Ashley definitely. I'm the favorite.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else. There's a long list.
Oh,
Styles.
Well,
Remo's been pushing for this for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and Brian Kraft.
Brian
Yeah,
Kraft, definitely.
But I think it's a testament, honestly. Like, I mean, obviously it's the end of the year, so we can talk about, like, I think the last year for you guys on this podcast has been really big, and I think it's been, it's cool to see, not to make this not about Dan, but it is cool to see what you guys have done over the last year, and I think the grind is very evident. I think if you look at kind of like the list of guests from this year compared to last year, and just like the organization around it, even like the 12 days, like no shots at anyone who was on it last year, obviously, but like the caliber of guests this year has obviously been really
I agree.
exciting. That feels like a good way to end the show.
Yo,
The music's coming in now.
Dan, thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I'll second what David said. This is the best year yet, and I can't wait to see what's next for all of us.
Right on. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming through. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Congratulations to you for a life well lived to this point. Greg, thank you for showing up. David, thank you for showing up. Nick, as always, man, we appreciate you.
No thanks to Shin.
And no thanks to Shin.
Yeah, and his green bubbles.
Thanks everyone for listening to this new episode of A Waste Time with It's The Real, day number 12 of our 4th annual 12 Days of Podcast. Jeff, if you want to find out more about us, I'm Eric with the curly hair. You are Jeff with the glasses. Together, we are It's The Real, no apostrophe, no spaces. If people want to find out more about this podcast, it's called A Waste of Time with It's The Real. And if people want to find out more about what's going on with us, Jeff, where can they go?
You can always go to ItsTheReal.com. Go to our website. Go check out that newsletter. Go check out our merch. We got a lot of links, and you can click them all. Go check out all of our episodes, which are streaming on all streaming platforms. I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about Google, Spotify, Apple,
SoundCloud.
Castbox.
Is SoundCloud the forgotten system?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's still there.
You can also find us on Twitter at ItsTheReal and Instagram at ItsTheReal.
Okay, so we asked people to check in, and if they wanted a shout out, let us know what episode of the 12 days they liked most and why. And there's a bunch of you who wanted to check in and get your shout out. So Jeff, here we go.
Cherry Poppins from the Officially Street podcast said Tinashe was my fave. I love her, and can I go to Taco Tuesday with y'all?
Okay. Also, I want to say shout out to Cherry Poppins because I kind of did throw her under the bus in the middle of this podcast run and said she cherry picks. Shout out to Cherry Poppins. I appreciate her and look forward to seeing her at Taco Tuesday.
She also definitely only listened to one episode. Shout out to Lawrence R. Comedy, who said Young Baby Tate and her Come Up were the best episode. Ramon DS said that one is easy. Hands down Cam and his theory on dinosaurs. Haha. Aha. Abu Calves, our man from London town, said Bun B because he is hilarious and has so many stories.
I agree.
C Notoriety said Cameron discussing wanting to cast Jeff in a music video. This needs to happen. I agree. Beatmaker from South Florida said Cam's episode finally Flea returns to South Harlem. Devin, no one cares, said the Bun B one was amazing, but when you two and Jinx link up, it's always a collection full of gems. It seems accidentally. I don't know if that's a sentence.
Wait.
It's always a collection full of gems. It seems accidentally. That's what makes it a classic. All right.
Yeah, you know what? Roll with it.
Yeah. I will not turn down a free compliment. Real CBG said the Bun B episode because hearing a cordial discussion with one half of a top 3 rap group of all time is always great. Ain't No Jigga, Jay-Z himself,
Yes.
said Cam got the most traction, but I really like the Tinashe joint. I'm glad she kept hope and sorted her situation out. Glad she is part of The Rock.
Yeah.
Cindy Chase said Jimmy's because it doubles as a review of Cam's also.
Totally agree.
100. Will Prince Art said Bun B talking about meeting Obama.
Crazy story.
He also said Cameron and dinosaurs a close second, of course.
Yeah.
Elvis Six Store.
What language is that, Joe?
Elvis Six Store. I don't know. Whatever your name is, shouts to you. Cam's episode and how he was bragging about being a great basketball player, then seeing that video of him missing the shot.
And so that refers to the Complex video on Twitter of Cam and Jimmy in dress clothes and dress shoes playing basketball. By the way, I think that they were sort of hamming it up. I don't think that was really
That was a
them
bit.
playing.
That was from a few years ago.
Yeah, so I don't know where Complex
But
wanted
also,
to take that.
obviously, Cam did better than Jim, so I would still think that Cam would beat Jim. Rob Cornelius said, kill a Cam because you gotta believe in Flea.
Yeah.
Shout out to his new project. JW the Dude said, Bun B, all of his stories are great, but the Mexico one has to be the best one. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've laughed harder during this run than that.
That was a great story.
Trey Martino said, the young king Jorge Peniche. Been watching him from afar for a while now. He's responsible for a lot of classic content. Y'all really dug deep. The marathon continues.
Yes, sir.
Jorge Peniche, I enjoy behind the scenes grind. TMC was also said by Extra Watched. IPTYZILTL. Don't even try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Okay.
Said the Ill Mind episode when he talks about him recording in his room and his mom asking who he was screaming at. Ha ha ha.
Okay. Wait, hold on, Jeff.
Yeah.
Was that quote unquote user a bot or not?
I'm gonna say bot. Draft ATL said, I want to shout out, of course, Killer Cam is first. Shout me out, a holla, dun dun, Ben Stiller voice. I don't.
Hey, man, you did it. Go ahead.
I don't know. Jeff, my man, the culture of me, said Bun B for real,
Yes.
Trav Dave from the
OHIO
said, my favorite episode so far is The Real Goats. I love his story. Shouts to James Rico from Real Goats.
Yeah, the Midwest checking in, you know?
Jesse Broom said, loving the Tinashe episode and listening to her try to describe the part of Glendale, La Crescenta she's from, was quality stuff as someone who lives 10 minutes from there.
That was pretty great.
This is Chris G said, I haven't had the time to listen yet, but can I just get a shout out?
No.
B.R817 said the Cam episode was fire and my AKA is BR LOL.
LOL.
Smash Lames said, Cord Jefferson Pod was great. Shout out to the Tucson Hip Hop Festival.
Yeah.
All the hip hop that's coming out of Tucson. Cash Money Josh said Cam for sure, probably the best Cam interview I ever saw. Also, it helps that Eric labeled it as the best Cam interview of 2019.
Go check that out on YouTube.
Mind of KB said Cam was my favorite episode, and I like that he admitted to having his closet divided into what he's worn, what he hasn't, and what he's been seen wearing.
So our friend Teray, who is on Sirius Satellite Radio, is
Black
a rapper
Teray,
and
yeah.
is from Coney Island but lives in Atlanta. Said that he appreciated it because he too separates his clothes in his closet by what has been worn, what has been photographed, and what is new.
What a world. So dumb.
It's true.
Daniel Aguian said the Cam interview or Ross. Now, Rick Ross' episode was not part of this, but whatever. Go listen to the Rick Ross episode, everybody.
Go watch the Rick Ross episode.
I am Scott Free said I like the Jim Jones one, TBH, just for the simple fact that he was eating again. No, wait! The Illmind one was dope too. I wondered why y'all never brought up the Illmind of Hobson series. They were dope. I don't know what you're talking about. But I am happy that I am Scott Free reached out because he was asking why he hadn't been shouted out, and this is a good place for him to get shouted out. Also, On Q just texted our friend On Q, the rapper and performer.
Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, and previously from elsewhere.
Yes.
Said, yo guys, just wanted to send you this outside the group chat, but I just wanted to say this new episode with Jinx is really good. I threw it on getting some shit done, and I wanted to say it's an important episode. Imposter syndrome, whether or not you're making luxury goods, etc. All the thoughts you guys are speaking on resonate with artists as well. Clearly, it's about creating content. Happy holidays, y'all. And he said it low-key reminds me of the Andre 3000 and Rick Rubin episode.
Jeff, we're back next week. How nice is it to say that?
Yeah, just one episode.
One episode.
One episode in 1 week. That is all we're delivering. We are not doing any more 12 days, 12 podcasts until 1 year from now when Eric, that's when I'm going to burn the apartment down.
That's what it is. Jeff, as always, now for real, for real.
Sure.
We'll see you guys next week.